You got the giant piece. If you intended to be in the session on how to do everything with LibGuides, you're in the right place. Right? I'm Sharon Bradley. I am a Special Collections Librarian at the University of Georgia School of Law. Some of you were lucky enough to get the highly collectible bookmarks that we give out at UGA. We change those out, so that's why they have different, some of them have different apps on them. And I handle our archives, preservation issues, a lot of interesting things like that, but I'm also the LibGuides coordinator, or whatever that is.
I'm Robert O'Leary, and I'm a reference librarian in California Western School of Law in San Diego.
This is Robert's first Cali meeting, so y'all be very kind. I told you, Kevin, we're a good group of people.
That was sweet of you, and it was sweet of you all too. Thank you.
And so, we do actually have a LibGuide for the presentation with particularly a lot of the helpful stuff that Robert has created. So there is the URL right there. But by way of getting started, I was inspired by Alan Levine this morning to tell you a story. There was a young and impressionable law librarian who hated the school's website. So she became obsessed people with LibGuides. So that's why when I say everything, to me, yes, you can do everything with LibGuides, and you don't have near enough time to talk about all the things you can do. But we'll talk about some of the things I've done, some of the things Robert has done, hopefully give you a few helpful tips along the way. So hopefully we'll have a nice end to the story as it goes along. You probably noticed in the program, there's some issues, or excuse me, some sessions on programming, particularly getting students to do that. And there's always the talk about librarians learning to do more coding and things like that. And so that is kind of part of, I think, expanding the use of LibGuides. It can work great for people just out of the box. It really is a really nice system, just right out of the box. You just do use it as it comes to you. But if you really want to expand its use into some other areas, maybe be a little more creative about how you organize things, and that's a big thing for me, is organizing the stuff that's in there. You do need to have a little bit of codiness about you. Nothing complicated, a little CSS, right? A little HTML, so when you open up that edit box, you can go into the source and play around with that a little bit. So nothing terribly complicated. So this is all doable by everyone that's here. And so Robert's actually going to get into talking about some of this codiness. That's my technical term. Should we go forward?
Facebook had been out for several years, but it had started with a couple of universities on the East Coast, and it was kind of a posh thing, and then it became a university thing, and then it got bigger. And all my friends had gotten it, and I hadn't gotten it, and I did not want to get it. But finally, my two friends just said, you have to get it. Things are changing. You're missing all these conversations we're having. So I get Facebook, and I friend them like they said. But when I friended them, all these other people saw me whom I knew, and they friend requested me. And I looked at them and thought, but we're not friends. I don't I don't meet you for dinner. I don't go to your house. I've never met your parents. We're not friends at all. So I started clicking ignore, ignore, ignore. Why are they doing this? This is so intimate. I don't know them. And I'm going through ones, and I find this woman whom I admired so much, and she was strong and sweet, and she was president of the student body, and she planned events, and she made sure everyone was comfortable. But I really cared that she made sure I was comfortable, because she was really sweet to me. And so I get there, I really like her, but we're not friends. I don't understand this, and I click ignore. And then she's the only one who talks to me about it. So a week later, I'm seeing her, and she said, oh, why did you ignore my friend request on Facebook? And flying out of my mouth is, but we're not friends. And I knew when it came out of my mouth it was the wrong thing to say, and her face changed. And then I start backpedaling, but I really like you, and I'm like you, and I think you're awesome. You know I love you, Cindy, why? And then she just starts, the huge smile comes over her face, and she wasn't reacting to my words and being offended. She was reacting to my words and realizing, he doesn't get it. And she said, Robert, we can be Facebook friends. Facebook friends and friends in real life are different. You're cool and we're cool. Rock on. And then she walked away to be awesome somewhere else. So what that's here for is to think about migration issues.
Robert's story, just told you a story. That's great.
When you get to migrating from LibGuides version 1 to LibGuides version 2, they talk to you about tagging a database asset. And I went to Spring Sharon, I looked at the videos on database assets, and they kept repeating the same thing to me, and I apparently didn't hear it. So I thought, database assets, it's our big A to Z list of databases, I'm just going to make sure that they're all tagged. But then I looked at the database assets, because with us it was electronic resources, with them it's database, and I feel like this is a law association, like a law professional association. It's not a database, I shouldn't tag that. This is a website that has useful information, but it's not like someone's going to go to that website and search through fields for particular legal information. I shouldn't tag that as a database. But someone had told me tag all the electronic resources anyway, so I turned off critical thinking and just tagged them all, migrated it, and realized I forgot all the electronic resources by topic. So in LibGuides, a database isn't a database. A database is a thing, a piece of content that you want standardized. You want everywhere this link exists, we want everyone to have an up-to-date link to it. We don't want your piece of content on this LibGuide to be one way, and someone else's piece of content on this LibGuide to be another way. We wanted them to be updated together and to be standardized. And we want it on the A to Z list that we can sort by subject and topic. So when you think of a database and LibGuides, think of like a friend on Facebook. There's not much of a relation between the two, but you know you want that to be standardized in your A to Z list. Is this making sense to folks? It's a database in like scare quotes. Okay. So this is the database issues and what you can do. You want to standardize it, you want the A to Z list. Another thing is, sorry. The other thing on the migration process, you have this choice in old LibGuides versus new LibGuides. The old one you could have the tab layout across the top and you could change it, and the new one gives you the menus on the side and all the boxes are in a row on top of each other down the middle. And when I'm looking at LibGuides, I'm thinking people on the new system are transferring directly from version 1 to version 2. And there's a choice to be made here that that it's not important what decision you make on it, but I want to make sure that everyone recognizes this is a choice, and it's a mobile access issue. And I want to show folks that specifically.
Are there some people who have not migrated yet? Yep. Okay. This couple of you. Love it. Trust us.
So this is a LibGuide in the old system.
It's not perfect.
Now if I make the window smaller, what happens to the content? It gets cut off. The content doesn't reorder itself. It's still right there the exact way that it was. The mobile user looks at it, sees the scroll bar have to go left and right. It doesn't change the structure of your content. This is the old system with responsive code in it. It looks the exact same. What happens to the content here? Yeah, it's resizing, it's changing the way it's structured. So what's important to get here is that column 1, which on the old system said need help and had our library hours, had nothing to do with the topic that the LibGuide was about. The LibGuide is about legal issues on death and dying. Column 1, the one on the far left, had to do with our library hours. That's not what the mobile user is going to see. I mean, they won't see the scope note, the death and dying topic. They're going to see your hours. So they have to scroll down through that, and then scroll back up to your headings and choose a path. So if you're using this 3-column layout or the 2-column layout, the one on the far left is the one mobile users are going to see. Everything else is stacked underneath it. So what LibGuides version 2 gives you as an option is to have everything in one long column. So instead of having the 3 columns or the 2 columns, they stick the menu on the left side, and then everything is in one long column in the center. Now when that gets shrunk, when that gets shrunk, the menu goes on top, so it's a menu. And the very first piece of content that the mobile user sees after the menu is the first piece of content that the desktop user sees. So it makes it more accessible for mobile users without having to be mindful of it. When you're designing LibGuides on a 1-column layout, you don't have to think, how will this look for mobile users? Now for folks here,
And you're just selecting the 1-column option?
yeah.
Okay, so it's as easy as that. So.
Inside admin settings, look and feel, page layout, for the guide, you can choose 1-column option and make everything that way. But you don't have to. You can have that be the standard and have people choose the way they want it. And either way, it's fine, I think, whatever you decide, because you get to decide how to present your content. But what's important is knowing the effect of that. And where I am right now, we decided to fix everyone's in a straight line. That way no one has to think how this is going to look to a mobile user, because everyone's already thinking about it for the desktop user. You could also think, who's going to look at this on a mobile device? That's totally legit as well. You could just design for desktops. It's just an issue to bring up to think about as we go. Are there questions about this? Okay. You want to take it, Karen? Sharon? I'm sorry.
Have you gotten this far? We didn't have time to rehearse. This is improv, okay? We're doing improv. Oh, we did that already?
No, I put it on this session.
Oh, are you? Okay, good. When I talk about things like doing everything with LibGuides, so in my world, it really is all about me and enhancing my prestige and my popularity in the institution. And what can I do to become more popular and more prestigious? I mean, I already, I'm already cool, keen fashion sense, so I'm just building this popularity and prestige thing. But what's kind of happening now, as we know in law libraries, it's hard to believe we still have that discussion, are we relevant? Oh my God, are we ever more relevant than we are now? Most institutions, at least the people that I talk to, we're getting more and more involved in the total functioning of the institution. We've come out of our shells and beyond our walls and are moving into the other units within the institution, like the administration, the communications, development, alumni affairs, all of those kinds of people. So getting much more involved in that. So for me, looking at LibGuides as a tool that I can use to worm my way into some of those departments, go out to them and volunteer to help them with some of the things they're doing using this particular tool. We have a Drupal website. It is controlled by the admissions office. Maybe that's pretty common. Some of you, they control the look and main functioning of the website. So it does not become a particularly useful tool in a lot of instances. So I'm going to use this to reach out to other units within the institution and even beyond the institution as well. So that's how I'm enhancing my prestige and popularity. Particularly faculty support. And not faculty support from the standpoint of even so much their scholarship or their classroom activities, but things beyond that. One of the things I'd like to share with you is something I did for one of our faculty members. Okay, what was that? Alt tab, there it is. Oh. Where are we going? I forgot which one we're at. I thought I brought this up. But let me just do this. And we had a faculty member who had been involved in the short-lived sales tax or tax on services in Florida. But there was a lot of really interesting information. And he still would get this is what happens when you have to use other people's computers.
Shall I type it in like
that? Okay, well, I'm just trying to find it right here. Services, yes. Services. apologize for that. But this is something that he had worked a lot on, and we were putting the materials into special collections and trying to figure out how to present this material to other people who we were still communicating with him, decades later on this particular issue. And what he had done was to write a great article. Despite being a leading expert in sales and local taxes, he writes great. It's actually kind of fun to read his articles on tax. So what I did was to actually take an article that he had written and then used it as the springboard to organize all of the materials. And so I had the different sections of his article here. And so the novel part of what I had actually done was to create sort of this index over on the left there. And that repeats on each of the pages, so you can get to those different sections. But what I also figured out how to do is, if you've ever tried to use anchors within LibGuides, it's very restrictive on how you can use the anchors. Usually it has to be in the same box that you're working in, maybe the same page, but I think it may be just the same box. But I figured out how to actually make those anchors go across other pages. Now I did have to go into the HTML code to do that, but it was actually quite easy to figure out how to do that after the fact, and I won't go into great detail there. But it was just one of the ways of organizing the material to make it a little bit more sort of seamless for the user to go back and forth, but only have to create one box and then also use those the anchors that are in there as well, because it's a little restrictive in how you do that. Other things that we've done that I think are really important is particularly to highlight some student work. Sometimes students tend to get forgotten in the process and in an institutional website. So when we have students that have worked with faculty members on some important projects, the LibGuides allows me to actually give them credit for doing that, and their name stays in there. When you look for their names, they will come up as they were one of the co-creators of the LibGuides. We can't really do that on our website. Let's just say that's not how our website works, nor do they tend to like to leave those things up there. And then the students are able to go back and give the URL of that LibGuide as work that they have done, and their name is on there. So it's a way of saving those kind of things that I think is very important as well. And recently, again, that reaching out to other offices in your institution, one of the associate deans was developing a new writing competition. And of course, there were going to be handouts that were going to have to be sent out to the students and all that kind of stuff. And so I just said, well, how about if we take those documents and we put them in a LibGuide, and you only have to send one link out to the students, so every time anything changes, the student just goes back to the same link. And you'd have thought that I literally had invented water, because they were so impressed with the concept that, oh, you can do that, you can put these all together. Yeah, it works. So I think that it was a good example of reaching out, supporting the activities going on there. It actually didn't take me very long to do it all, but you don't tell them that, right? You make it sound really, really complicated, because you don't want them to know that it's really not that hard. So I think that those are the kind of things that are important to use LibGuides for outside of the research sort of thing. All right. Let me get that. Get back to the PowerPoint. Is that it? Yes. Yeah. We need to go forward. Okay. I think I got a little bit lost there. Did you want to talk about this right now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, go ahead. So I think that's going to slide it up.
What are some reasons why, when you get LibGuides right out of the box, and it looks fine as usual, you might want to change the way it looks? Don't worry, I have sample reasons in my head, but I'm just seeing if other people have different ones.
So it looks like your website.
Yes, so that it looks like your website. Does anyone know Where I am, it's something called something like web governance and web styles. Have people heard of stuff like this? We have certain fonts. We have to have all of our headings 1 and heading 2 in this font. We have to have all of our paragraphs in this font. Is this ringing true and making sense, like style manuals? Okay, that's one. Our website is blue. Is anyone else's website a color blue? Green?
Green.
All right, red?
Orange.
Orange? Who's orange?
Red, green and orange.
All right,
Damn you.
that's kind of exciting. At some point in the 90s, when the Padres went from brown and orange to blue, I got sad because everything was turning blue and I was getting brown and orange.
We're orange too.
Pardon?
Indiana University, we're orange too.
Orange as well?
Makes you feel happier.
So to make your LibGuides site, it makes you feel happier?
I just wanted to make you feel a little happier.
That's sweet. That makes me feel happier. Okay, another one. So to make your LibGuide site look like your school site, you might want to change it. And I wanted to show you ways of doing those changes.
And this is one of those instances where you're pleasing the admissions office, right? You're pleasing development because you're kind of bringing it all together and you're all part of the same happy family. And so even if you, so it's another one of those groups of people that you kind of need to work with and make happy. For those of you who haven't made the switch over from version 1 to version 2 yet, there is the change because when you switch over to 2, you actually become part of LibApps. And so I don't know if you noticed there, but Robert's login was a LibApps login. So your account becomes part of LibApps, and LibGuides is a piece of LibApps. Depending upon your institution, SpringShare sells other products, and you might subscribe to those. So that is a difference there. So when people say LibApps, it's kind of the umbrella that's over the other products like LibGuides, LibSurvey, they have about 4 or 5 other products, so it is a little bit of a change.
So one of these tiny changes, if you have the CMS system, is at the guide level, and if you have the, if you don't pay for the CMS system, then it's at the system-wide, like LibGuides level. So if you're in LibGuides and you have admin access, you can go to the admin and to language options. So the admin would be here, and then your language options are down here, and that lets you change the language LibGuides is using to refer to certain things. So if LibGuides is calling it your friendly librarians, and it has pictures of all the librarians going down the screen, you might not want that there because in your part of the country that sounds a little bit presumptuous or I don't know, like overly familiar with people. And it might be inappropriate to say your friendly librarians. In the West, it actually worked. I think it's kind of cute. But like in the Southwest, anyway, I think it's kind of cute. But I don't know. And also culturally, even I don't think it would work with all groups a little bit too much. But you could change it to be anything you want, and that's under language options. One thing that's not there is if you want to get rid of a heading, you want to get rid of a word, and so you click the space bar in the field and click enter, and it will not save it. But if you enter an HTML character for a space bar, it will. So you type in the little and symbol. This is this part up at the top, and NBSP semicolon, and it takes that as HTML code to make a space, and then it removes the label for you. Now where I've used that is in the menu. Because LibGuides allows you to make any page your home page, it'll have this guide menu here, and right next to it has without the name of the page you're on, which means that if you're on your home page, you click guide and you're going to your home page. But I replaced that with the non-breaking space, the NBSP semicolon, and now it doesn't display the page I'm on as if guides were a separate page from it. Not that this is something that you need to do, but if you ever want to remove a label and you don't want to bother figuring out the code to remove it, you can enter NBSP semicolon and get rid of that label. When you're on a guide, and this is on our LibGuides, it's for this session, the CSS changes page, I've taken discrete chunks of changes that you might want to make and given you the code to make it. So here is remove to not display the search box. And what you would do is just highlight that chunk of content between the style tags, copy it, and then you could go, if you have admin access, to admin, look and feel, customs, JS, CSS. And inside the guide, you would go to here, this little mountain symbol, custom, JS, CSS. So if I want to remove the guide, the search box,
What means the search box is up in the corner?
this right here in the upper right, if I want to remove it, custom CSJS, and I just paste in that chunk of code and click save.
And you might ask,
And the guide is,
why would you want to do that? Because I was asked to do that, because I had a situation in which there were multiple units under one account, and one division or unit didn't like the search box, because what happens when you do a search, it searches the whole system, and it was pulling in results from other units within that account. I hope that makes some sense. They didn't want that there because they had organized things in a way that was logical to them, and they didn't think that the search box was terribly useful. So that's why I asked Robert to tell me how I hide that. So I actually use that, and so it works, but it's something to think about, that all those things that are at the top can be hidden.
yeah, they can all be hidden and adjusted. Well, so far. I might find one I can't do that. So we go down this page. This is CSS to change the background color, and it's again it's just the language is CS cascading style sheets, and that's just what it's called. But if you're just thinking in terms of how do I change stuff, you can look down here and just take everything between the style tags inside of a content box and go into your admin system, or in here the guide CSS, because in the actually admin side you can change the background for the whole site, and paste in a discrete chunk of code to do something. Did it change? Is it blue now?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. I was doing a survey, looking at different LibGuides at schools and finding out different things that people were doing. And I found Duke's library guides were fairly awesome in this breadcrumb menu. So this is, I really like this. I like this across the top, and I wanted to grab it. So I went into their system, I found that piece of code, and then I had to change it to make it good for LibGuides version 2, but it worked. And then this is it where I am. And it turns out that that was something copied from I think it was a Stack Overflow, like another website showed you how to do a breadcrumb menu, and then it was adapted for Duke really nicely, and then I took how their adaptions and tweaked it a little bit for here, but it's in our school colors. So I put that up here, down on this page as well, and it's called breadcrumb. And it doesn't work to paste into the CMS system just on a guide because the code is too long. But if you want those breadcrumbs, you would just copy from the style tag down to the bottom style tag, that box, and paste it into your admin site. Is this getting too esoteric and weird, or is this making sense?
I just have one question about what you just said. You said it was too long for something?
If you have the CMS and you just want to change the styles of one specific guide, it limits the amount of characters you can put in the custom JS CSS box.
Okay.
So I couldn't paste it into this guide and have you see changes because there's not enough room. It has to be on the admin side and you put as much as you want.
Okay.
Does that answer?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Going with what you said, I just wanted to point out to everybody that if you do email their support at SpringShare, they get back to you usually same day, if not the next day, you know, depending on what the hours are. Because I came across this issue, I was like, my director wants me to change the damn colors. I don't know how, and I said to them, you gotta tell me how to do it. And you know, they gave me all the code.
Well, now you can just email Robert.
Yeah, but you know, Robert's got other things to do. They're getting paid to support this product, and they're very, I think I was a little worried when we did the migration that, oh my God, I can't call somebody, you know, I'm gonna email them, and who knows when they're gonna get back to me, but they were, you know, reasonable time frame, within 24 hours.
Yeah, I will echo that. They've been very responsive and very helpful as well. But what about the notion of not having breadcrumbs, hiding the breadcrumbs? Believe it or not, I was actually asked to do that, again, because of the concept of when you have multiple units and you end up with this long breadcrumb, they didn't want the name of the parent organization to show in the breadcrumbs. So that's something that's done as well. I don't know, did you put that in there? Or that is on the SpringShare's website. If you just go to their help and search breadcrumbs, it will show you how to hide various pieces of the breadcrumbs. Just one piece of it, the whole thing, one's in between, so whatever piece you don't want to see, you hide the breadcrumbs. And you know, you don't think about those things until somebody says, well, I don't like having the parent company's name in there. Can we get rid of that? Sure, right? That's why you always say sure. And you have to figure out how to do that as well. What's next?
There's also code in here to adjust stuff for mobile view. It's just that LibGuides 2, version 2 comes with that already, and so this is just font adjustments to make them a little bit smaller so that more stuff fits on the screen. But they're all just discrete chunks of code, and they're all labeled, and you can just paste them into your custom JS CSS menu to see what you want, to see what they do if you're up for it. And I've tried them all, and they work.
Okay, do we need to get back to the card move on? Did you cover all this stuff already?
Yes.
A couple of things I'd kind of like to highlight that I've worked on as well. One of the things in the tube that you get is the ability to mix content in your boxes. Previously, you could have a box of links, you could have a box of databases, or a box of book recommendations, but you just had that one type. Now you can mix all of those together. One of the things that I figured out in version 1, but that I didn't like, is when I loaded some documents, I didn't like having just a box of documents and then I had to sort of have another box. I like to embed things where they make the most sense. You have some text, you talk about something, and you link out to the document or the whatever. So I didn't like having to have separate boxes of things. So when I was working on something and I didn't like the document box, what I do is, security concern, we're good, we're good. This was something, and I also put this under the heading of pleasing alumni as well. We had a donation from an alumni of his grandfather's exams from 1900. So if I had put them in as a list of documents, what you get is the list of documents, and there's a little PDF icon after it. And I don't like the way that looks. Never liked the way it looks, even though I can now mix it with text. So what my trick to actually, this list here is that here's the list of documents here, and there the PDF. But when you load a document into the system, and I put it on a separate page, you can't see it because I hide the page. And I put all my documents in that documents box. But once you've loaded it, they each have their own URL. So I simply capture the URL of the document in the document box on the hidden page and embed it here where I want it to be, because I like how that looks better than having a list of documents. Now that may not be important to some people. Having the list of documents may be fine, but it was something I didn't like from an aesthetic standpoint. And so it was the trick that I figured out to still make it work is to, when I log in as an admin, you see the hidden tab. And that was something I figured out as well, is that hidden things don't mean that you can't use them. I have pages and pages of things I just call reusable content. And the guide is hidden, the pages are hidden, and that's how I've created home pages for things. I don't like the default LibGuides home pages. I don't like the boxes, I don't like the way they lay, I don't like anything about them. So I created separate templates for individual groups. And I think it's time to go on to groups. I'm going to do that. How many of you have the CMS? Really? Oh my God, people. Oh, how do you live? I don't know how you do it. No, you
need
must.
permission for that.
Huh?
You need permission for that.
You must get the CMS. You must, because one of the important things about the CMS is as I call it, great fun with groups. A lot of these things work. Groups let you totally create different experiences for your users. Totally change the colors, the banners, all of the code that Robert has put in there for you that you can put at the system level or the guide level. You can put in the group levels as well. So I was talking about that project I was working on where they didn't want the breadcrumbs to show, but only in that one group. The rest of the groups under that umbrella institution have the full breadcrumbs because they're fine with it. It was just one piece that didn't. But once you create groups, then you can totally treat them separately from the system settings and change the links, change the colors, change where things go as well. So from the standpoint of making an argument to your institution on why you want to upgrade to the CMS, groups is a really good argument because it lets you parcel out how you do things. If you have research guides, you can make them look one way. If you're going to do guides that honor retiring faculty, they can look totally different. And that is, for me, well worth the extra expense of the CMS because you have that flexibility to totally treat groups and different pieces of your institution in different ways. And so also talking about other groups and that enhancing our prestige and popularity, the LibGuides are a great way for us to provide things, backup, or we do an annual CLE for the bar in Georgia, and so I always create a, is it working? Yeah, doesn't matter if it does. I always create one for the section that I do. Not all my co-workers are kind of on board with it, but I'll create one for the pieces that I do so that they have all the links, they have all the text, they have everything that I'm going to talk about during my CLE presentation as well. And we also do a number of sessions for outside groups, the undergraduate. And the LibGuides are a great way for us to get to them and provide our resources to them. But again, I can totally customize that for them, for their school, the class I do on preservation laws out of the College of Environment and Design, but I can totally change that and even bring in their graphics and things like that because I have this separate group that lets me do that. Okay, do you have some more stuff?
How many folks in the room, by raising hands, have a basic understanding, even if it's from library school, of HTML and CSS? Like, yes, I've heard of that, and I might have programmed the test page 1.9. Okay, this is most folks. So, I think the biggest hurdle to finding these things, like I put them in little discrete contents chunks, but how can you find them, is when you look at that really big page of code from another website that's all weird, not getting intimidated because the code is there, but just thinking, I'm only interested in one thing. It can be as weird as it has to be. I'm going to find the one thing I want. That's all I care about. So it's how to find the piece of content that you're interested in that's a change to the LibGuides when you see something interesting on another person's site that you want to look at. Excuse me. So this is California Western site, and if you're at this site and you say, I want that piece of content, and you're talking about anything that's not the standard in LibGuides, but some adjustment, you don't have to worry about clicking on a particular area or analyzing that item, although that's really good if you know how to do that. You just right-click on any, and this doesn't always, I don't know if this works well on IE, but you right-click on any area of the screen that's not a particular item, usually on the background somewhere. But what you're looking for is this thing that says View Page Source. Sometimes they'll say view source, sometimes they'll say view page source, sometimes they'll say, I think there's one other thing it says that'll have the word source in it. So when you click that, what I sort of think of as the big intimidating screen comes up with a bunch of words that is not designed to be human readable. But you don't care about all the words in there. All you care about is a little part where someone pasted in the code that you want. So if you look inside of it for custom JS, let's see, CS, custom, there it is. Begin custom head JS CSS. LibGuides has right now wired into it, although people could change it, that wherever the style changes come up, there's going to be a heading on top that says begin custom head JS CSS. And if you find this here's a style tag, and that goes down to another at the bottom, and that's something I'm working on that I haven't commented properly yet. But here is a link to a style sheet, and you see the type, text CSS. That's a piece of content that you could use, and it's linked to a file. And the file ends in CSS. So you know that style. And when you click on it, I tried to follow a version of best practices where I'm commenting on every change. And when I looked at Duke's site, the person that did it had comments on done changes to explain what each one is. And when I looked at Southampton has these great changes, and they've done the same thing. So you can see a table of contents at the top about each change and sort of order the document, and then commenting above each change what it does. Background of LibGuides changes to same color as background of school's website. Footer background the same as LibGuides main areas. But I'm going through and I'm commenting on each little piece of it so that you can find it. And that's not here only, that's at the sites I've looked to. So I want to look in one where I'm not sort of arranging it for you, but was that way when I found it. And that is, so if I go to Library Guide Southampton, and I right click and I go to View Source, and I type in custom, here's begin custom head system JS CSS. And what I see is another link rel, what is that? So this is another file that says CSS at the end of it, and I can click on that.
Call it awesome, font awesome.
I think that's a separate, that's not these separate changes. Someone put in font awesome separately for some reason. But then here's their changes within style tag to reduce the size of headings, to add background color, to make the admins, are you able to see it this close?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's nice. To make the admin sign in color. So they're going through and entering different chunks. And then I wanted to find,
The idea is you don't have to recreate this, you just pay homage to the others who have and use their things.
and when I find these things too, I'll Google search them and I'll find, oh, they found this at Stack Overflow, or they found this at some code other site. So I find these codes in different places and they're being adapted for LibGuides. But this I thought was pretty awesome, and they've upgraded to version 2 recently. Well, not that recently, but in the last couple months, I think. And they've started to remove pieces and adjust it. And they've removed, when on the profiles page, there's a section that says My Guides, and if there are no guides there, it says something like, I haven't made any guides yet, check back soon. And then Subject Specialties, and it says no subject specialty selected. But they've got this thing that removes that if it's blank, so that there's not just this blank piece of content there. But if you don't want to use the subject specialty area for your librarians, you can just remove that heading by grabbing it and pasting it in. And this brings us to JavaScript. Have people heard of JavaScript?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I think of CSS as being style, and that if you want to get rid of something with CSS, you'd not display it. It would be sitting there, but you wouldn't want it displayed. With JavaScript, you just remove it. So as an example of that,
So is there an advantage to removing as opposed to hiding?
at
Is
this,
that personal preference?
when I think of it when I think of designing from the beginning, it could be very different. But for this little piece of it, I just think of it as JavaScript feels more dangerous to me if I don't know what I'm doing, and I feel safer with styles. Because if I'm grabbing code from someone else's site and putting it on my site, It's not like I'm going to put in a style and the style is going to be hide this and send it to some other person. They can't do that with CSS. But with JavaScript, I'm uncomfortable with it, and so I want to get it from a good source or know what I'm doing. But for CSS here, this is the migration changing the appearance learning outcomes on the site, and there are 3 of them. And if I go into custom JS CSS, I have hide examples of possible learning outcomes. And then what pops up is these different ways that you could fulfill learning outcomes. But when I had hidden them, they didn't sit there taking up space or were cloaked or something. They were just completely disappeared as if they didn't exist, even though they were sitting in the HTML. What JavaScript would do is instead of displaying it with the code to hide it, it would remove it. It would be sitting back there and you wouldn't see it. So one thing, for purposes of this, I don't know that it's useful to talk about terms of style and content and all these different things, but just that when you're looking for changes to make to LibGuides, if it has .css after it, it goes between style tags. And if it has .js after it for JavaScript, it just goes between script tags. So I'll show you those. So on the CSS page at the top, these are the script tags, the style tags, excuse me, that it would go between. The script at the top and the script at the bottom. For the JavaScript changes, it goes between the script tags. And what I've done is taken here is when you have books on your site with version 2, you can have this default blue book icon, or you can upload a version of a book. But what happens over time is if you're not checking it every week or something, or every month, that link will go dead unless it's part of your LibGuides thing. So if you're just linking to Amazon had the picture of the book, and I don't know if I can copy the picture, but I can say, here's the picture of the book and tell LibGuides so it links to that picture and brings it up. Eventually it'll go dead and have this error message, which is do you know if you want to do already materials?
I think so.
Okay.
But you don't have to write it all down right now. What were you trying to do?
Oh, make this an error.
Oh, okay. That I can figure out how to do. Oh, well, Robert is sort of figuring this piece out. As the Special Collections Librarian, a big part of my job is preservation of materials and work that people have done and things like that. So I'd certainly like to advocate LibGuides as a tool to be used as part of any preservation program that you might have. I use it to make documents available so that I don't have to let people actually look at the physical items. I've used it to save work of faculty and students that would otherwise have been removed from a website, and I'm able to save that, and faculty particularly love that piece of it. I have an ongoing project that I actually do hope that will finish this year in preserving a collection that was donated to us in 1947. We had a UGA grad who was one of the public relations officers at the Nuremberg trials, and we received the complete Nuremberg collection, and there was a press release about 12 institutions receiving this collection, and we were one of the 12 because of his connection. So I'm using the LibGuides, and I'll show it to you in a second, of using that as my preservation tool so that I can have these things scanned, and then the very brittle paper can go back in the boxes and hopefully not have to worry about it much. But go ahead with your piece.
This was just up here in the upper left, that's the error of an image that didn't load. And this loads generic book images if the custom book image doesn't load. So you can copy this script this piece of thing into your custom JS CSS field, and that will replace every error image with a generic picture of a book. And you can change the HTML of what the address of that picture is a book where it's commented here.
Or a picture of yourself? Right.
This one is just for book assets. So
Okay.
if you want a picture of a book, you put it here. The one below is for pictures of any other image. And I just stuck an image to match the background so the user wouldn't see there was a problem, it would just be missing. But the librarian would think there was supposed to be something there and can fix it.
Why don't we go back to, we probably should wrap things up. So let's go in, and it is, and go back to, okay. I do want to bring up my Nuremberg thing in just a moment because I'm not actually very proud of it. But so it's that concept of thinking broadly of using this tool, not just about research guides. But I wanted to kind of maybe then ask some questions, poll the audience, those of you who've been using it, your successes. For me, the success is frankly the love that I do get from faculty, administration, outside individuals. It has always proved itself to be a great use of my time to create a guide and then put it out there into the world. Well worth the time that I put into it, even those that are very, very time consuming, like my Nuremberg project. It's been going on actually for a couple of years now. So I think that is well worth it, and well worth upgrading to the CMS to be able to expand the kinds of things that you can do as well. What hasn't been so successful in my institution is actually getting other people to be excited about it. I am a fiend, I am obsessed with it. But the rest of the librarians, they're just not there with me on this particular one. Nor am I having much luck getting people in the rest of the institution interested. The career services people were all agog over some things that we had done for them, and they wanted accounts, and they get sometimes. And then when it came down to actually doing anything, no, nothing. So for me, that's been the not so successful and kind of being a little bit disappointed. And then creating guides that do not end up being used by whomever you did create it for. So those are the things that I've been a little disappointed with. I don't know what Robert's successes or failures, no, not failures, just not so successfuls. Do you want to comment on that? And then we'll open it to you all.
I'm at the beginning where I am now, and I feel like the success for me is to get to have more control than is allowed through the school website, because it doesn't create a security issue for the school, and LibGuides like SpringShare is taking care of the security issue there, and it still lets us adjust things, so it gives us more flexibility that way. But I don't know on the student side, or the sort of target audience side, how they're doing what they would think is successful. Do folks have questions or comments on what works and what doesn't?
Yes, or if you have some successes that you'd like to share with us, or not so successes. No.
Have you figured out a way to dedupe assets? I got confused about why you're doing everything as a database. When we do our A to Z list, I take it off of 360 core, and it's just my databases. And then everything else is in our assets. And when we migrated, and we're one of the first schools to migrate, I didn't realize, and they didn't really tell us, that every single link dupes.
Yeah, that was kind of an ugly thing to discover, wasn't
And
it?
then when you copy or make copies of your guides, it made a duplicate of every link that was on the guide. So I'm in the process of trying to dedupe all the books, all the links, so that people can reuse links, and rather than create a new link every single time they create a LibGuide. It's faster that way.
Well, that's a question of training too. They have to be told when they're going to put something in and they pull the little menu. No, don't click link. Well, click link, but then go to reuse link and see if it's already in there.
Yeah, but if you have 5
Yeah.
links,
Yes.
all the same thing.
I've had to go. I go through it. I do it by hand. I go through each guide and put in the new one that I want, the original, and so I'm doing it by hand.
I'm not sure why they didn't build in a dedupe. Big deal with librarians.
Well, perhaps they thought that people would know that the link already existed. Like you would tell somebody, oh, by the way, I put in this link to blah, 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 and your coworkers would use it, but they don't. They re-enter it each time. And so it really is a matter of informing and training anybody else creating guides. First, check to see if the link is already in there. Then if not, then you can be the first one to enter it. But I mean,
It still doesn't solve the
no, it does not.
duplicate.
It's painful. It's painful. Yes. Listen to a really boring webinar is what I find myself doing. And going through one by one. Any other questions or success stories? Yeah.
Okay. I totally understand, wanting to do the single column so you have a good mobile layout. That totally makes sense. Do you think that it's a problem though, having a single column, like just being limited to that and asking, desktop users to scroll down to see everything?
Robert will have to answer that one because I don't do that.
Okay.
Because I'm like hung up on how it
This
looks.
isn't like it can be. You have the option of doing multiple pages, so it's not like they have to scroll far down to see everything because they can click over and do different pages. But some of our guides are one page and we're designed that way, and they wouldn't work as well if there were 2 pages because people would be going back and forth all the time. So I think with some it would. And I definitely don't have any magic answer for that. This is why it's something to think about, but it will not work in all situations to do it.
Right.
Yes, did you have a comment about this?
Yeah, I do.
Solution, yeah.
If you're willing to do custom templates, you can actually have the sidebar navigation with multiple columns or different box arrangements with the sidebar.
I would love to see that, because that's actually one thing when I saw that LibGuides 2.0 would do that. I was very excited, but
It's not out of the box, you have to go muck around with the code. And it helps helpful to know a little bit about the Bootstrap CSS framework,
Okay.
but it's possible. I mean, I think it's documented somewhere, in the SpringShare community board.
It is because I've done the custom templates for different groups. And so I know I got it from their website. And this is the thing that with the custom template, then you've got this layout. It has the box numbers. Remember, each box in LibGuides has its own individual number. So I create the templates that pull the stuff in. But over here, I use one of my hidden guides and I create the page the way I want it to look. And then I just have the numbers and it goes in the template for the home page for the groups. For me, I create the home. Each group can have its own home page. So you're not stuck with one home page.
Okay.
So you can create a home page for a group with a custom template, but you can create a guide template as well.
Do you need CMS for that?
Yes.
Okay.
You do.
Yeah, we have that.
Yes. You've got to convince your institution to get the CMS because it does give you that groups. But the templates, you can still do that even with the regular one. You can create separate templates.
CMS.
Yes. Yeah. So you can have more than one
I think you get
template.
2.
Right.
You get 2 templates.
Oh, that's all you get? Is the regular is just 2?
Well, the idea is it's the tabs and then it's the big long
Oh,
column beside
I'm
that, but you
sorry.
can adjust the
Okay.
tabs to be whatever you want
Yes.
based in code. I haven't tried it, I'm assuming.
Bake sale. Have a bake sale just to get it because it is so worth it.
If you use the side nav, and you do your content in subpages and turn on the previous and next button, it moves like a tutorial.
Oh.
And the usability studies, students even like that more.
Hang on, I write that down.
So, I can show you an example of mine, but it works better than they have tab boxes, which they don't allow you to turn previous and next buttons on, which is one of their faults. And you can create previous and next buttons in your tab boxes, but I don't think that's the most great user-friendly. And now and I'm taking classes in web design, there's a whole shift towards getting away from multiple column websites.
Okay.
Because they're not user-friendly. And so actually there are websites that are now just one page.
Huh.
Completely just one page.
And SpringShare is very good about, you know, if you have an issue of responding to that. But originally version 2, in version 1, when you wanted to change the width, you had that nice slider. That wasn't in original version 2. Well, it's there now. You have to go in and it says custom, but the slider is back.
Yeah.
I think you can thank me because I know I asked them for it from day one. You said, yeah, two of us. So they're very good about when something isn't working of, well, we'll see what we can do about it, so.
Unless it's in their code. They forgot to put a selector for their subtabs, so you can't change the color of the subtabs in the site navigation.
You can do
Well,
child.
you can figure that out.
Did you
But-
figure it out? Because I emailed them, they didn't do a child selector.
No, I mean, instead of a, can we talk about
Yeah,
that?
we've actually gone a little bit over,
So.
so thank you for your attention and please, any questions?